Hello! Thanks you for visiting the Other Woman and Man Stories channel. Have you ever experienced such life stories? Ashley and Joseph had been together since their university days. Back then, two young men were vying for her attention, Joseph and his friend Ryan. Both tried to win Ashley's heart, but in the end, she chose Joseph. He was more serious and driven, while Ryan was charismatic, but not very serious. Ashley was already thinking about the future and desired a committed relationship. Their relationship progressed quickly, and soon they were married. Recently, their daughter turned 7 years old. The first few years of their married life were peaceful. But over time, Ashley began expressing her dissatisfaction with her husband more frequently. She constantly compared him to the husbands of her friends who didn't have children yet. She grew tired of hearing how those husbands spoiled their wives with gifts, frequently went on vacations by the sea, and so on. Her own life seemed dull to her. Work, home, taking care of their child. Their apartment was small, her job was boring, and everything felt monotonous. One day, she started criticizing her husband again for not advancing in his career. She gave examples of her friends' husbands who started businesses and were successful. Joseph grew tired of constantly hearing his wife's complaints, and that evening they had a heated argument. A few days later, Joseph was at work when he received a phone call. It was Ryan, his former classmate. They occasionally kept in touch, but not very often. "Hey Joseph, long time no see, long time no hear. How have you been?" Ryan asked cheerfully. After a few minutes of conversation, Ryan finally revealed the reason for his call. "Listen, my birthday is next Friday. I wanted to invite you and Ashley over. Will you come? There will be many guests and it will be fun." Joseph immediately agreed and eagerly anticipated the wonderful evening. He thought it would be a good opportunity for him and his wife to relax. They rarely went out together, perhaps that's why she was so irritable. When Joseph came home and told Ashley about the invitation from Ryan, to his surprise, his wife put aside all her negative thoughts and happily agreed. He felt relieved. Maybe she just needed a distraction. They decided to leave their daughter with her grandmother on that day. On Friday evening, they arrived at Ryan's house. It was spacious, with modern renovations and a huge living room where all the guests gathered. There were even a few familiar faces from their university days. Everyone congratulated the birthday boy and inquired about his achievements at work. It seemed like everything was going great for Ryan. The couple quickly immersed themselves in the festive atmosphere. While Joseph engaged in lively conversations with the guests, Ashley focused on the host of the evening. She watched him intently, amazed at how well things had turned out for him. Alcohol flowed freely as the evening progressed. The guests kept pouring drinks for Joseph, and soon he became heavily intoxicated. He rarely drank, so such large amounts were unfamiliar to him. Not wanting to disturb anyone, he went to another room and lay down on the couch to get some rest. The celebration continued, and Ashley didn't leave her old classmate's side. He told her about a completely different life. "You know, I still don't understand why we didn't work out back then," she said thoughtfully, looking at him with deep meaning in her eyes. Everyone was already drunk, and Ryan took her words literally. He didn't waste any time and discreetly led her to his bedroom. Old feelings resurfaced, and they began to kiss. In that moment, Ashley didn't feel any doubts or guilt. She already envisioned herself in the beautiful life that Ryan described. Amidst the cheerful shouts of the guests in the neighboring room, everything unfolded. Ashley cheated on her husband for the first time, and to make it worse, it was with his friend. Sometime later, Joseph woke up from the loud, joyful shouts of the guests. He looked at the clock and decided it was time to go home. He went to the living room where everyone was and saw his wife there. She sat with a glass, staring into space as if lost in thought. At first, Joseph didn't pay much attention to it as he had just woken up and had a pounding headache. After bidding farewell to everyone, they called a taxi and headed home. Joseph practically fell asleep as soon as his head touched the pillow. Meanwhile, his wife sat in the kitchen for a long time before going to bed. About a month passed since that incident. Each day, Ashley spoke less and less to her husband, often met with her friends, and behaved strangely. When the atmosphere in the house became unbearable, Joseph directly asked her what was happening. And that's when he heard the last thing he expected. His wife exploded like a volcano. She started saying everything that had been building up inside her. First, she expressed dissatisfaction with their standard of living, then household problems, and most importantly, that he no longer attracted her as a man. "Well, who does attract you then?" asked her husband. "Ryan," his wife replied seriously. After such a declaration, it was impossible to remain silent. The wife stated that she was tired of her life with Joseph and was expecting a completely different life with Ryan, so she was leaving him. Their daughter was already asleep, so Joseph tried not to raise his voice. When he asked about their child and her future, she replied, "We'll figure it out later," and went to pack her things. Later, Joseph called his former friend to talk about men's matters, but after mentioning their disagreements, Ryan hung up and started ignoring his calls. Joseph filed for divorce. Throughout this period, his wife visited their daughter only once. But she felt no remorse and went back to her lover. She didn't even try to seek custody of her own child. Apparently, Ryan wasn't ready to be a father. Moreover, Joseph would never allow his daughter to grow up with a stranger. So he lived alone with his daughter. It was difficult to answer all her questions about her mother. But eventually, it seemed like she understood everything herself. Ashley clung tightly to her new life and found happiness with her lover. However, it didn't last long. Ryan turned out to be unready for a committed relationship. He always wanted to have fun and not be tied down. After some time, Ashley began comparing him to her ex-husband and noticed that Joseph wasn't as bad as she thought. After 6 months, she broke up with Ryan and started calling her ex-husband. Every time they met with their daughter, she tried to evoke his sympathy with phrases like, "We could go somewhere as a family," "Ask Daddy," "Let's have dinner together," and so on. One day, when their daughter ran off to her room and the former spouses were alone, Joseph told her not to interfere in his life anymore. She could see their daughter, but he didn't want her to destroy his life and nerves again. He made it clear that there could be nothing more between them. And so, Ashley left her family for illusory changes in life. She immersed herself in passion and budding relationships. But as is often the case, such unreliable alliances quickly crumble. Restoring trust among loved ones, on the other hand, often proves impossible. In the end, everyone gets what they deserve. That's the story of life. Share your thoughts in the comments about this situation and the behavior of the spouses. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and be sure to like this video. It will greatly help promote the channel. Take care and have a wonderful day.